Welcome to Boilers Extra. Nathan Baird from the Indy Star.
Sam King from the Journal and Courier.
I should have your name down here, and I forgot. Not in midseason form today. And in some ways neither was Purdue, or in some ways maybe they were. 27-24, and the kind of loss and the way it happened, where you just sort of scratch your head. Like I don't know. It's about the last way that they could lose this season. And there it was.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say at this point, because there were games, the Minnesota game just 2 weeks ago, I thought Purdue really found a way to lose that game. This took it to another gear, because you have the ball in a tie game with 1 minute and 6 seconds left, and really feel like if you can get 40 yards and set up some kind of crazy long field goal, you got a chance to come out of homecoming with a victory. This was a game that Purdue led most of the way, and then the final 106 of the second half results in 2 field goals. The final 7.5 minutes of the first half resulted in not capitalizing on starting a drive at the Rutgers 40 and then giving up some crazy 17-play drive to end the half that was a touchdown. So the end halves definitely killed Purdue today, but it was the play that I think we're going to talk about that probably will stick out in Purdue fans' minds.
Well, let's talk about that first. I do think there are a lot of points in this game where Purdue didn't take advantage of something, either left points on the field, wasn't able to get off the field on defense, that could have changed the trajectory of the game. But you could just feel this turning in a bad way late. And when Rutgers went down, I thought Purdue was a little bit fortunate to be looking like it could head to overtime, because the way things were leaning, it looked like Rutgers would be able to punch in a touchdown there late. And then now you're down by 4, most likely, unless you block the extra point. And you have to drive for a touchdown, and you're going to have a minute to do it. And so the defense makes it stiffens there in the red zone. It was kind of a bend but don't break sort of for the defense today, except for all the times they broke down in coverage against KJ Duff, which we'll talk more about that. But they get the ball back, and then just a weird confluence of events. It's an RPO. Ryan Brown pulls the ball back. He's trying a quick pass to Michael Jackson III off to his left. Because of the design of that play, though, the defensive end had come in basically unchecked. He's able to get a paw up. Sorry, I'm pawing in your face. He gets a hand
Ryan
up.
Brown in this scenario.
He gets a hand up and swats the ball. He'd be facing the other way. But he gets a hand up, swats the ball up. They go straight up in the air. And this is one of those things where it almost unfolds in slow motion. In retrospect, Ryan Brown would probably say, "Oh, I wish I had just smacked the ball into the ground. Like, I wish I had just, downed it. Like, just knocked it down." It's better from a ball security situation. It's better from a field position situation, because they were going to probably lose yards there, and it stops the clock. Yeah. But Ryan Brown's a very instinctive football player, and his instincts have been a positive on a number of times this year, whether it's the play that went for a touchdown against USC, whether it's him diving in for the touchdown a couple of weeks ago. Like, you've seen times where those instincts have served him well. Today, I think the most instinctive natural play is you just catch the ball and start running with it. That's what he did. Braden Joyner had blocked an interior defensive lineman for Rutgers, whose name is escaping me right now, all the way off the play, or at least off to the edge of the play. But now the way things had unfolded, he's like right behind Ryan Brown. As Ryan Brown runs by, he reaches in, punches the ball out, another guy falls on it to 30. And at that point, that even if Purdue stops Rutgers, at worst case scenario, they're probably looking at a mid-40s field goal to win the game. And they had missed one from 45 earlier in the day, but I think this guy's solid enough. And then they get 17 yards worth of runs, puts them in better field goal position. They call a timeout with 2 seconds left, and the losing streak continues.
Yeah, just blown away. I mean, I almost feel bad for the coaching staff and the players at this point, because it just seems like Purdue keeps finding new ways to lose games. And we've talked about it numerous times that some of these teams that Purdue was fighting against and, had opportunities against, Purdue was outmatched talent-wise. That wasn't the case today. That wasn't the case against Minnesota. And it's right now Purdue's got to learn how to win the game. And I think you touched on this the other day, is like, if Purdue has to go down and make a winning play in a close game, is it equipped to do that? And, it's one play, and, in retrospect, it probably was the wrong decision in real time, but those things on the field are happening much faster than we're seeing them from afar. And just kind of unfortunate for Ryan Brown because, I felt like this was a game Purdue could win all the way until, about a minute 6 to go. You feel a little less sure after that field goal to tie the game.
But even at that point, if they've got a minute 6 left, I don't remember how many timeouts they had. They had at least 2.
Used all 3 of them.
Okay, so they had used all 3 timeouts at that point. Okay, so, but still, in college football, the clock stops after every first down. Minute 6 is kind of a long time in college football. And Spencer Porath is 10 of 11 this year, and I think he's got some decent range. This would have been, unless they really got downfield, they might have had to test that a little bit. But I thought they were at least going to get down and take a shot. And then, okay, now you're in overtime in your home stadium. That didn't work out well last year for Purdue against Northwestern, but I think you like your chances there too a lot of times, especially because although they couldn't consistently move the ball today for some reason, Rutgers defense has its issues. And then for that play to happen the way it did, it was just sort of you can't believe it, but it's also just sort of one of the things that has been happening to this team. Like if you check off all the boxes today, Purdue was up 10-0 late in the first half. They're still up 10-0. 10-0 with the ball at the Rutgers 40, first and 10 at the Rutgers 40. And that's kind of where things started to go wrong. The most advantageous way to have taken over possession at that point of the game is where things kind of started to roll backwards on Purdue. They had 5 sacks today. They gave up none. They committed no penalties that actually counted. There was one that was taken away because Rico.
It was an offensive pass interference on Rico Walker, but it was an incompletion on 3rd down, so Rutgers just declined.
Right. So, I mean, that would have been, but it also wasn't a penalty that affected really how that play went in any way. All the things that were in their favor.
217 rushing yards.
Yeah. Oh, they ran the ball very well today. They're up 10-0 because Malachi Thomas, who came into this game with 120 total yards for the year, had 111 on 4 touches by the end of the first quarter. You think, okay, well, just keep running the ball and keep throwing these little passes out of the backfield. That instinctual play that I was talking about before. Well, Ryan Brown missed Malachi Thomas in the flat, or it seemed like he had. Went back through his progressions and then saw him still over there and kind of gave him the wave to go up the sideline, and he hit him for a 40-something yard play, and that led to the field goal that made it 10-0. You saw ways early on in this game where this defense was making plays. It was getting to Ethan Kaliakmanis. Purdue had a chance to take control of this game, and then it takes over possession at the Rutgers 40, goes 3 and out, and then gives up an 85-yard touchdown drive the other way. And I thought to go into halftime leading on homecoming, but feel deflated, I thought was not positive for Purdue, obviously. And even though they came out and marched right down and scored very quickly to start the second half, I still thought that was what gave Rutgers new life. And I think you saw the result from there.
I tweeted at halftime something about if Rutgers comes back and win this game, the last 7.5 minutes of the first half will be the reason why. And somebody responded, I don't remember who it was at this time, said 99% chance Purdue loses this game. I've seen this story too many times. And probably wasn't quite 99%, but it's probably how Purdue fans feel at this point after the last few years of this football program. Is just, if you're in a situation where you have to make a play to win a game or not make a play to lose a game, it's probably not going to go in Purdue's favor, and that was absolutely the case. And Purdue didn't help itself with the coverage of KJ Duff specifically. He did make some nice catches, but he was wide open by almost 30 yards on his touchdown catch. There were a couple other times where he was just kind of in his own zip code out there, and those are defensive breakdowns. And Barry Odom did say after the game, because of the broken coverage on the touchdown, it kind of took how aggressive they wanted to be going after the quarterback.
Sure.
Because I assume that was a communication issue on the back end.
Yeah.
And somebody was blitzing. That nobody had covered up that spot.
We should talk about that play. So it was still 17-7 at that point. Yeah. And I saw it was a 2nd and 7 play. They sent Alex Sanford into the nickel. So he's kind of like the nickel Sam as opposed to the nickel safety, which is what Smiley Bradford is. They put Sanford into the game and blitz him. Now that gives you numbers on the back end. Rutgers picks up the blitz and Kaliakmanis kind of steps around it. But whatever rotation was supposed to happen at the back end of that secondary, and they're missing Miles Slusher today, although Hershey McLaurin was almost the reason why they won this game in some ways today. He had a fantastic day, I thought, for the most part, filling in for Miles Slusher. But on that play, whatever rotation is supposed to happen at the back of that secondary just absolutely did not happen. And he's wide open for what turns out to be a 73-yard touchdown play. It's just you watch the replay, and it's him catching the pass, and then I think 4 Purdue DBs like in a row, like it was a bunch of like birds flying south for the spring, like they're in a formation, just like following him to the end zone. That was a massive play in this game, and he only had explosive catches today. He had 6 catches for 241 yards. No, only 6 catches, 7 targets. There was one that he didn't catch. So 6 catches, 241 yards. And I think the shortest one was 19 yards, and everything else was like 32 or more yards. And when I asked Barry Odom, like, did you see the same things today that were the breakdowns that Illinois was able to exploit? And he said, no, this was much more a man-to-man problem. They were just getting beat in man coverage. And that's not necessarily – like, there's no good answer there. Like, either the same things happened or other catastrophic things happened, regardless of what happened. That was why a Rutgers team that has had so many defensive problems this year, I think if you'd come into the game, what's their game plan? How do they, chunk out yardage if they can, but also just control the ball, shorten this game, keep Purdue's offense off the field, because they don't have a lot of confidence in their defense at this point, and they end up giving up, 543 yards of offense, and Rutgers runs 75 plays to produce 51, and that's just a ratio that's almost never going to work out in your favor.
Almost 14 more minutes time of possession as well. So.
All the things that worked in Purdue's favor today, all the red zone problems they've had this year, 4 on red zone conversions today, including 3 touchdowns. We mentioned the penalties, no turnovers until that last one. Like, how many times have turnovers been an issue this year? No turnovers until that last one. Like, so many things were in Purdue's favor. And I think right now, after you come through this 3-game stretch, when they went through that stretch earlier this year and they showed some promise against the USCs, Notre Dames, and Illinois, you thought that there was a momentum building and that this would be the juncture where it would kind of rise up. And I think what you saw now was just a team that just doesn't know how to finish the job yet. And that's what sort of Barry Odom was saying after the game, was like, he's still making all his guarantees. We're going to get this turned around. We're going to win. We've come a long way. We're just not there yet. And I think it's almost a nebulous thing, but sometimes it is kind of just, have you learned how to win? Have you learned how to make final winning plays? And they're just not there yet.
Yeah. The one thing that he keeps saying is winning is hard, and that's true. But Purdue's made it harder on itself throughout this 6-game losing streak. So, and it's a team right now, and we've said it several times, that doesn't have much or any room for error. And ultimately, it's a mistake that decides this game. So the downside of this now is the final 4 games are at Michigan, Ohio State, at Washington, and Indiana. And Purdue's going to be a double-digit dog in every single one of those games, I would imagine. You get the top 2 teams in the country and then 2 tough teams on the road. So
Purdue will probably be a 3-touchdown dog in most, if not all, of those games. Certainly against Ohio State and Indiana, they will be. Michigan was a top 25 team as of this week. Washington was not ranked this week, I don't believe, but they also have a coach who knows a little bit about not most of Purdue's roster, but the starting quarterback, the starting running back. Like, he has some intimate knowledge of a lot of the offensive line. Like, he knows some of these guys, right? And that's going to be to Washington's advantage, because Purdue doesn't really have that kind of inside information. So not that I think that that's going to be the decisive part of that game. Let's sort of take the temperature now, after we come through this 3-game stretch where we had said this is going to be kind of where Purdue can make its season. Like, even if it only wins 1 game, if you get to the end of the season and you're like, okay, well, they were 1-11, they take that and go to 3-9. It's 2 more wins, and they get a Big Ten win, an FBS win. You break those streaks. I think even just getting 1, it doesn't say that you had a successful season, but it's like you at least took a lurching, stumbling step forward. It counts for something. It's really hard to come out of this year unless they pull a big upset in the next 4 games and say you took a step forward this year.
Yeah, any win moving forward almost feels like 2 wins, because Purdue is, nobody's given Purdue any hope. If it was at any point this season, certainly not now after losing to Rutgers and getting shut out at Northwestern and losing it at Minnesota in the fashion you did. But for Purdue, it's not like I don't get the sense that this team has quit or has rolled over and died. It seems like these players are still very much engaged and believe that they can go out and win games. And, when this kind of stuff happens, you worry about losing the locker room or things of that sort. I don't think that that's a case here. So I kind of was half joking when I said in there, now Purdue goes out and beats Michigan next week and everybody's kind of shocked. But I don't think that's going to happen. It's not, likely, but it's possible.
Wouldn't be the biggest upset in college football history, but it would be a surprising win, to say the least.
But I think that, Barry Odom's not wrong when he says we're close, we're getting there, things like that. It's just now the schedule's up against you on top of everything else. You really felt like Purdue had to capitalize on at least one of the 3 games during this recent stretch, and instead is walking out of October with a 6-game losing streak.
I mean, think about how many players that are important players, some of them who were starting right away, that didn't come here until the end of the spring. Like, that alone tells you how much work there was to do, that they brought in a massive haul of transfers in the winter and then had to go get another huge batch after that because they needed so many upgrades. And they're going to be needing – there's really no position on this team that can't be upgraded if you find the right guy in the portal this offseason. But I also think if you get to the end of this and you're 2-12 and you haven't won since early September, and especially if you can't really compete in these 4 games, like be around in the fourth quarter of some or one of these games here in these next 4 weeks, then how does that handicap your ability to go appeal to those players? Everyone thinks it's just like you're going to the store and buying guys off of a wall or whatever at a certain price. But there's going to be a lot of teams vying for the same players. And sure, connection with the coaching staff and those things can matter. And yes, you can appeal to playing time. But who are you most appealing to playing time? It's people who are at places where they're not playing. And that's where this program has been the last 2 years. And how do you appeal to the guys who, a guy like CJ Nunnally, that's a good example of someone who was at a lower level, being a group of 5 guy, and they went out and got him, and look at what he's doing now at this level. I mean, he's a difference maker at this level. I think you got to find more guys like that, and fewer guys who aren't playing somewhere else for a reason. You've got to go find more difference makers.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is kind of problematic going into last year when a lot of people were saying, well, Purdue got these guys from Georgia, and if they can play at Georgia, well, they weren't playing at Georgia, the guys that came last year. Nitro Tuggle played a little bit as a freshman last year. It was mostly special teams, wasn't a lot on offense, but he's been a guy who's helped the offense a little bit. So I think that's a situation that's maybe different than what you're referring to. But, yeah, there's a lot of guys who were on marquee programs in the past couple of years who have come to Purdue, but weren't on the field. So it's not like it's just a flawless transition where you go from being a third string guy at an SEC program and you come to Purdue and you're a starter and you're automatically good because you were at somewhere else. Purdue's got to see itself kind of on the level or on par with those kinds of programs and kind of get, compete with some of those teams for a few guys at least that can help your team win. And right now, whether Purdue has the talent or not, I think that there's this kind of a lot of other things that are problematic that are not helping the cause here. So, but ultimately, winning will help you get those better players. So Purdue's got to, take advantage when it has wins. And here recently, games that could have won or should have won. I'm not going to say it should have won anyone, but Purdue could have won at least a couple of games here this month and didn't come away with a victory.
What Indiana has done the last 2 years, I think, makes this look very easy to people. And it's not. And that's not just me echoing Barry Odom. Like, it is not easy to take a place that has kind of really hit rock bottom and turn it around. He knew what he was taking on. He could have waited for something that was like an easier opportunity, frankly. Like, he had done really well at UNLV. He could have stayed at UNLV and probably had another good season and wait for the next hiring cycle. And if he didn't want this opportunity. But he wanted this opportunity. I genuinely think he believes in what is possible at Purdue when you get it going right. We've seen it happen in history. I think, but the previous 100 years of Indiana football history show you how tough it is to win consistently, because that program was nothing until Kurt Cignetti got there in any real way. They've had some, not nothing. They've had their moments, but also they were the losingest program in college football history for a reason. It's difficult to do this. And I'm not making a comparison between Purdue and IU. I'm just saying that the previous 100 years of IU say more to me than what Signetti has done in 2 years as far as the difficulty of doing this. And now it's going to take like the one thing you have going for you here in these last 4 games. I mean, you have nothing to lose in these last 4 games, and the teams you're playing have a lot to lose. That can sometimes be in your favor. You also have a situation now where, from an individual standpoint, there's guys who want to play professional football. These are the teams that if you get on the field and make plays, this is where you can get noticed in a different way. Like the scouts at all these games, they're watching film. When you can get on the field, like Purdue's secondary, if you want to kind of change the perception of what you've done this year, get on the field with Ohio State's receivers and lock them up and don't let them have these kinds of games. The problem is, based on what Ohio State's receivers have done, you look at what the KJ Duffs of the world have done against Purdue this season, and you're thinking, like, what sort of record is waiting for the Buckeyes if they want it?
By the way, no other DB has figured out how to lock up Ohio State's receivers yet.
No, very true. That's my point. That's my point. That's my point. But I also thought today I came into today thinking this game was on the defense, that this game was going to have to show that regardless of what the offense did, and I expected more from the offense than this, frankly, but regardless of what the offense did, this defense was going to be playing its best offensive opponent in a month. Like Illinois, it was a step down offensively facing Minnesota and Northwestern. Those are both worse teams than Illinois offensively. Rutgers, Nathan Kaliakmanis was a step back up with all the experience he has as a Big Ten quarterback and just his talent. I thought Rutgers would actually have the better quarterback play today, frankly. So how is this defense going to respond to that? And I'm not putting the loss on the defense any more than the offense, but I don't think the defense did what it had done the last 2 weeks. I don't think it showed the same level of progress that it seemed to be making. I think now it looks more like they played 2 worse offenses than the defense, and the secondary got better.
Yeah, I feel like the defense did what it should do, but it wasn't consistent enough. And I don't know how I worded this to Tony Grimes, but I said something to this degree after the game. It did its job, like, getting that stop to force a field goal late. But you offset it every time you give up a 40-yard pass play.
Right.
And you can make all the, sacks and getting them behind the sticks. And if you do something like that, that's not going to help. I think there was a situation during that same drive that was the game-tying field goal, and Rutgers had a 4th and 2 and picked up 16 yards. Those are backbreakers and take away all of the good you did to get Rutgers into a 4th down situation. Now, Rutgers is one of the best 4th down teams in the country, but it's also taking advantage of being in 4th and shorts, probably in a lot of those cases. Barry Odom, I think, I wrote this when Barry Odom got here. It feels like Barry Odom and Purdue are kind of similar in their molds. Barry Odom's a work hard guy, grind it out, tough, all that kind of stuff. And that's kind of historically what Purdue's been. It's not been a place that's flashy. It's tried to win with grit and tough mindedness. And I'm not alleviating Barry Odom at all, because clearly he hasn't done his job this year. You're sitting there with 6 straight losses, but I think that's maybe why he wanted this job. It seems to be more his fit. He played at Missouri, he coached at Missouri, and then living in Las Vegas. To me, it seems like a different lifestyle than probably what fits him. So this seems more like a Barry Odom's alley, and maybe why he wanted to take on this challenge.
Yeah, I don't know if I would say he hasn't done his job, and I don't think you meant it quite that way. I think it's just that
in terms of getting wins and losses.
Correct. Yeah. It's not I don't equate what I'm seeing around this program last year to what we saw around this program. I don't equate what I'm seeing this year to what we saw last year. And not that those guys, there weren't people on that staff trying to, but this just seems like as I said to you, I think a couple of times, like, this is what I thought this would look like. I thought they would be less talented and better coached, and whether that would actually result in any more wins or not was anybody's guess. And man, were they really, really close 2 of the last 3 games, but couldn't quite get there. I think we went pretty far into this without mentioning 1 of 9 on 3rd down. Did we talk about that?
We did not, and that's the defining stat probably out of this whole thing, because Rutgers' defense is far and away the worst in the Big Ten, and
I think they were allowing over 49% 3rd down conversions against FBS opponents this year. and Purdue went 1 of 9. It's like, that's what's so weird. Like, and then so many other things you can point to offensively, how well they ran the ball, et cetera, et cetera. But then there's always the one, it's not always just like one little wrinkle that's off. It's usually like one, like, just paralyzing thing that's off. And I thought that first drive, that last drive of the first half, where Rutgers, like, Duff made a really nice catch, like going up to get a ball. So it's receivers making plays instead of dropping the ball, which was a problem multiple times again today. You had a team that went down, and I think they converted a 3rd and 2, a 3rd and 1, and a 4th and 1 or 2 on that drive, on that 16-play, 85-yard drive, and then they converted a touchdown in the red zone. And you're watching that, and you're thinking, they just did all of the things that Purdue is struggling the most to do in a lot of ways, and that ultimately ends up being the difference.
Yeah, I mean, you can point to any single play in this game and say that's the difference, because it ultimately came down to a last-second field goal. And the one that looms large probably is the Ryan Brown play at the end of the game. But that's in some ways why Purdue lost, but it's not why Purdue lost in a grand scheme of things.
Yeah, it's like such a bizarre play, a bizarre result, but then bizarre resolution to the play, but then ultimately a too familiar result for Purdue. So we will both be in Ann Arbor. We're both scheduled to be in Ann Arbor next Saturday. So we'll be talking to you after the game, but we'll talk to you before that. We'll have more reaction from Purdue basketball's second exhibition game and kind of looking ahead into the season for them. And then just maybe kind of reassessing what's ahead of Purdue football in these final 4 games. Thanks for joining us.